When the Pope chooses to speak about a painting in his first major address to the world, you know that artwork carries profound meaning. Just this week, Pope Leo made headlines by centering his message around Van Gogh's Sower at Sunset, telling millions of followers that behind the sower, Van Gogh painted the grain already ripe, a detail most viewers miss completely. But why would the head of the Catholic Church choose this particular painting by an artist who struggled with faith, mental illness, and crushing poverty? I'm Oleg G from Art Explained, Simply and Quickly, and today we're uncovering the spiritual and artistic genius of Van Gogh's Sower at Sunset, a painting that captures not just a moment in rural France, but the eternal cycle of hope, faith, and redemption. Created in 1888 during Van Gogh's transformative time in Arles, this isn't just another rural scene. It's Van Gogh's visual meditation on one of Christ's most important parables, the story of the sower who searches for fertile ground to plant his seeds. But Van Gogh transforms this simple biblical tale into something revolutionary, using colors and techniques that would influence art for generations to come. Look at what dominates this canvas, not the sower himself, but that massive, overwhelming sun. It occupies nearly half the composition, painted in brilliant yellow and orange that seems to pulse with divine energy. As Pope Leo observed in his address, this sun isn't just a light source, it's the driving force of the entire composition, representing, in his words, how God drives history, even if he sometimes seems distant or hidden. Van Gogh painted this scene from memory and imagination, not direct observation. He had been captivating by the biblical parable since his early days as a lay preacher in Belgium, where he had tried to bring Christianity to coal miners before discovering his true calling as an artist. The sower represents faith in action, someone who plants seeds without knowing if they'll grow, trusting in forces greater than himself. The composition tells a story of transformation. In the foreground, we see the dark silhouette of the sower, his bag of seeds slung across his shoulder, captured mid-stride as he broadcasts grain across the field. But look behind him. This is what Pope Leo highlighted. You can see areas where grain is already ripening, golden stalks catching the last light of day. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in this single moment. Van Gogh's technique here is revolutionary. Those thick, directional brushstrokes don't just represent the texture of the field, they embody the energy of growth itself. Each stroke follows the contours of the furrows, creating rhythm that mirrors the sower's steady pace. The paint is applied so thickly in places, a technique called impasto, that it creates actual texture you could feel with your fingertips. The color palette marks a dramatic shift in Van Gogh's work. Earlier that year, he had favored cooler blues, violets, and grays. But in this sunset scene, he explodes into warm yellows, oranges, and golds, colors of harvest, of fulfillment, of spiritual enlightenment. This was painted just months before his mental breakdown in December 1888, when he infamously cut off part of his ear. Yet here we see not madness, but transcendence, Keith. Van Gogh was deeply influenced by Jean-François Millet's 1850 painting The Sower, which he had copied multiple times. But where Millet's Sower works under ordinary daylight, Van Gogh transforms the scene into something mystical. His Sower moves through a landscape of pure color and energy, where the very air seems charged with spiritual significance. The biblical parable that inspired this painting deserves examination. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells of a sower whose seeds fall on different types of ground. Some on hard path where birds eat them, some on rocky ground where they can't take root, some among thorns that choke them, and finally, some on good soil where they flourish. The parable is about receptivity to spiritual truth, about faith taking root in prepared hearts. Van Gogh understood this parable intimately. He had experienced rejection as a preacher, struggled with his own faith, and felt his artistic seeds falling on indifferent ground. Yet he continued creating, continued believing that his work would eventually find fertile soil in viewers' hearts. This painting becomes autobiographical, Van Gogh himself, as the sower, casting his artistic vision into an uncertain world. The setting sun adds urgency to the scene. This isn't the gentle morning light of beginning, but the dramatic illumination of ending, or perhaps transformation. Sunset represents the close of day, but also the promise of tomorrow. For Van Gogh, who often painted at night and was fascinated by celestial bodies, the sun becomes a symbol of the divine creative force that drives all life. Look at how the tree on the left frames the composition. It's bare of leaves, its stark branches creating a counterpoint to the fertility of the field. This isn't accidental. Van Gogh often used bare trees to represent death or dormancy that precedes rebirth. The tree anchors the composition while emphasizing the cycle of seasons, of death and resurrection that underlies the Christian message. The yellow house in the distance, barely visible through the haze, represents human habitation in this cosmic drama. It's small, humble, suggesting that domestic life continues its quiet rhythms while this eternal drama of sowing and reaping plays out. Van Gogh often included such buildings to ground his cosmic visions in everyday reality. Van Gogh's personal relationship with this subject was complex. In letters to his brother Theo, he wrote about his desire to paint the sower multiple times. He connected it to his own mission as an artist. Someone who plants visual seeds that might not be fully appreciated until future generations. His prophetic sense of his own posthumous recognition proves accurate. The technique Van Gogh employs here would influence generations of artists. Those bold, visible brushstrokes that follow the forms they're depicting. This was revolutionary in 1888. Academic painting demanded smooth, invisible technique. Van Gogh's expressive brushwork made the creative process visible, turning technique itself into emotional communication. Notice how the composition creates movement. Your eye follows the sower's gesture across the field, up to the massive sun, then around the circular composition back to the starting point. This circular movement mirrors the cyclical nature of agricultural life: planting, growing, harvesting, replanting. It's an eternal cycle that Van Gogh captures in a single, dynamic moment. The spiritual dimensions of this work extend beyond Christian symbolism. Van Gogh was influenced by Eastern philosophy and found spiritual meaning in nature itself. The sun becomes not just Christian symbol, but universal life force. The sower represents anyone who creates in faith, whether farmer, artist, or spiritual seeker. Van Gogh's use of complementary colors, the orange sun against blue sky, yellow grain against purple shadows, creates visual vibration that makes the painting pulse with energy. This wasn't mere color theory, but spiritual practice. Van Gogh believed colors could communicate emotions and spiritual states directly, bypassing rational thought to touch the soul. The painting's current location in the Kröller-Müller Museum in the Netherlands means it rarely travels, making it a pilgrimage site for Van Gogh devotees. Standing before the actual canvas, you experience the texture and luminosity that reproductions can't capture. The yellows seem to glow from within. The brushstrokes create actual relief patterns. The scale envelopes you in Van Gogh's vision. Pope Leo's choice to highlight this painting in his inaugural address reveals understanding of art's spiritual power. In an age of digital distraction and spiritual uncertainty, he selected an image of faith in action. Someone continuing to work despite uncertain outcomes, trusting in forces greater than individual will. the painting becomes a visual prayer, a meditation on persistence and faith. Recent conservation efforts have revealed fascinating details about Van Gogh's process. Infrared analysis shows he originally painted a different sky, then completely reworked it to achieve the dramatic sunset effect. X-ray fluorescence reveals the specific pigments he used: cadmium yellow for the sun, ultramarine blue for the sky, colors that were revolutionary and expensive in his time. The influence of this painting extends far beyond religious interpretation. Abstract expressionists like Jackson Pollock studied Van Gogh's directional brushwork. Contemporary artists still reference his ability to make visible the invisible forces of growth and change. The painting pioneered the idea that technique itself could be emotionally expressive. What makes this work particularly poignant is its timing in Van Gogh's life. Created during what seemed like a period of stability and productivity in Arles, it represents his hopes for artistic and spiritual fulfillment. Within months, his mental health would collapse. Yet the painting captures an eternal moment of faith and purpose that transcends his personal struggles. The Sower's posture deserves close examination. He's not laboring heavily, but moving with steady, rhythmic grace. His gesture is generous, broadcasting seeds widely rather than carefully placing each one. This reflects the parable's message about faith requiring abundance rather than calculation, trusting in providence rather than controlling outcomes. Van Gogh painted multiple versions of Sower scenes, but this sunset version represents his most successful synthesis of technique and meaning. The earlier versions were more tentative, the later ones more frantic. This version achieves perfect balance between observation and vision, between earthly reality and spiritual transcendence. The painting's resonance during our current global challenges seems particularly relevant. Pope Leo's choice to highlight it suggests art's capacity to provide hope during uncertain times. Like the sower continuing his work despite not knowing which seeds will flourish, we continue creating, hoping, believing, despite unclear outcomes. If you're moved by art that combines spiritual depth with revolutionary technique, hit that subscribe button right now and join our community of art explorers. Every week on Art Explained Simply and Quickly, we uncover the profound meanings behind history's most powerful artworks. What strikes you most about Van Gogh's spiritual vision in this painting? How do you see the connection between artistic creation and acts of faith? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help others understand the enduring power of this remarkable work. If this video helped you appreciate the spiritual and artistic genius of Van Gogh's vision, give it a thumbs up. It helps more people discover these incredible stories of art history. See you in the next exploration.